this is based on testimony, right? Obviously this is based on testimony of the people at the time of revelation. It's based on the testimony of the Arabic scholars, right? Or Arabists, whether they be Muslim or non-Muslim. But testimony is a very key route to knowledge. Now someone may say, oh, the argument is based on testimony, so let's just reject it. It's all testimonial. But if you reject testimony, you have to reject, I would argue, all forms of knowledge. Science itself, for example, is based on testimony, right? Science is based on the testimony, so scientists study and they do their work, but they're basing it on the testimony of previous scientists, right? That came before them. They did their studies, they did their experiments, they produced their theories, and then they wrote about their theories, and then new scientists pick up on the testimony of previous people, and they work with that. Many of the things we believe, brothers and sisters, in this room right now is based on testimony. Well, case in point, let me ask you guys a question. Who believes China exists? There's some people thinking about it. Okay, majority of us, right? Who here has been to China? A few of us, right? The rest of us believe China exists. Why? You may say to me, oh, I've seen satellite images, I've seen television shows from China. But how do you know that that satellite image you've seen is actually of China? How do you know someone's not just telling you that? You're going by testimony still. If you've seen television programs from China, how do you know that that's a television program from China? Someone's told you that, right? Let's even take a simple example. Who here believes their mother is their mother? If anyone can put their hand up, I'm going to be worried, seriously. All of us, right? Okay. What empirical data do you have for that? Someone may say, oh, I have a birth certificate. Yeah, but you've been told that's your birth certificate. It's testimony again, right? Someone may say, oh, there's video footage of me being born. Yeah, but again, someone's telling you that's you. Do you look like you did when you were a baby? No. Again, testimony. The point I'm making is that almost all knowledge, testimony comes into it somewhere. Authentic and valid testimony comes in from some angle. So there's a whole study on this, right? It's not any testimony, it's authentic and valid testimony. This whole argument I'm presenting here is based on testimony first and foremost. The testimony of the Arabic scholars, the testimony of the non-Muslim Arabists who have studied the Arabic language, the testimony of people at the time of revelation, the best of poets who went to challenge the Qur'an and they said we couldn't do it, right? So if you deny this, then you have to deny almost all forms of knowledge, right? And then once you accept the testimony, the next thing is inference. Again, we use inference. What do you do in science? You take data and then you infer upon the data, your conclusions, right? Someone gives you data, you think about it, you reason upon it, and then you come to the best conclusion. Again, let's look at the data now, based on testimony. What do we see? The Arabs at the time were known for the Arabic language. None of them could challenge it, so it couldn't be the Arabs, right? Inference tells us it couldn't be the Arabs. Non-Arabs, it doesn't make sense. If an Arab who specializes in the language, who lives by the language, it's in his blood, can't challenge it, then it can't be a non-Arab. Could it be the Prophet ﷺ? No, because he was an Arab. So he falls into the first category. Therefore, the only rational inference we can draw from this, that it comes from God. That the Qur'an was from God. So when Allah issues the challenge and no one meets the challenge, then we should accept that it's from God. That's the most rational inference to make, right? Moving on to the next thing, and for me, this is probably one of the most just mind-blowing miracles of the Quran, right? The more you study this, the more it blows your mind. And it's to do with coherence. Now, something to think about. How can a book that's revealed over a period of 23 years, subject to historical context, be organized later to produce a coherent literary masterpiece? I want us to really think about this for a second. The Quran came down piecemeal, 23 years, right? Different verses came down in different contexts, different situations. Something was happening within society, revelation came down to the Prophet ﷺ. A lot of the Quran came down addressing problems and issues and things that were happening within society. So there's a historical context. Yet, when the Quran was compiled, you have this amazing coherent structure within the Quran, which just blows your mind. And I have two images here, which will better illustrate the point I'm making. The Taj Mahal, for example, is one of the most, one of the wonders of the world. It's a beautiful architectural structure. It's amazing. on the left-hand side, or maybe your right-hand side, you have a slab of marble, right? If you take different random pieces of marble without an intention of using that marble to build or build the Taj Mahal, it's going to be almost impossible to take just random pieces of marble and organize them in a way which produces this amazing structure. The only way that's going to happen is if you had pre-planned this construction of this building. Then you will cut certain pieces of marble to a certain size, and you'll produce them in a certain way, and then you bring them together, and then they'll form this amazing structure, right? Now, think of this analogy from the perspective of the Quran. It comes down to over 23 years addressing different historical contexts, right? Different historical things. Yet, when it's compiled, it forms this magnificent literary structure. How is that even possible? Unless the author knew the past, was in control of what took place in history, and he allowed for history to unfold in a way where revelation would come down, addressing certain situations, and when it will be compiled in this book form, it will still have this amazing, miraculous, coherent structure. That's the only real explanation if you think about it. Otherwise, it's impossible. A book that's been revealed, parts of it are coming down, subject to historical context, and yet when it comes together, it has this amazing coherence in so many different elements and levels, right? And some of this coherence, I mean, we could look at it from different perspectives. The whole Quran itself has coherence, because the whole Quran, the message of the Quran ties back to the fundamental concept, which is you have one creator and we were created to worship him. It all ties back to that. If you look at it from the perspective of individual chapters or the surah of the Quran, what you will see is that there's coherence between chapters. And the scholars have studied this in so much detail. There's so much written on this. For example, between the first chapter and the second chapter of the book, Al-Fatiha, what do we ask Allah for? Guidance. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Guidance onto this sirat, this straight path. And then immediately in the beginning of the second chapter, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is a guidance for those, like we said, of consciousness, God consciousness. You wanted guidance, you asked God for guidance in the first chapter, immediately in the second chapter, guidance. God tells you here's guidance. It wasn't revealed in this way, right? And then between the second chapter and the third chapter, there are some amazing symmetry which takes place. For example, both chapters start with Alif Lam Mim. Huruf al-Muqatta'at, these broken, disjointed letters. No one knows what they mean. Many chapters of the Quran is another interesting thing, that Allah starts many chapters of the Quran with these letters. No one really knows, Allah knows best what they mean. But it's interesting when they come in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, is that before Allah says there's guidance, it's almost Allah humbles you by when you read Alif Lam Mim, you have no clue what that means. Yeah? It's almost Allah saying, you don't know everything. Stay in your place, stay in your lane. If you want guidance, approach the Quran with humility. You will receive guidance. Right? It's a beautiful thing. So, Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran, they both start with Alif Lam Mim. Right? And then, the very first ayah, several verses of both of the chapters speak about the revelation coming down. And about generally speak about the revelation. Right? Then, general theme, or when the address of Al-Baqarah, the second chapter, is the Jewish community. The primary addressees of Al-Imran are the Christian community. The general theme when it comes to Islam and Iman, Al-Baqarah focuses on Iman. Al-Imran focuses on Islam. Then when you get to the middle of the chapter, in Baqarah, Allah tells us that you made the middle nation. And it's interesting, right in the middle, the verse 143, which is literally the middle of Al-Baqarah, Allah uses the word middle. You've been made the middle nation. And then if you look at the middle of Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that you have been raised as a nation for humanity. You enjoyed the good and you forbid the evil. Right? So it's amazing mirroring that's going on here. In Baqarah, you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to the Muslims regarding the Battle of Badr. In Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the Battle of Uhud. So the parallel is amazing, right? And this continues throughout the whole Quran. It continues. Again, think back 23 years, different verses. Al-Baqarah, some of the scholars says, came over a 10-year period. It's not that it all came down in one shot. Over at least 10 years. 23-year period. That's the majority of our lives, most of us in this room, right? It's older than some of the brothers here, subhanAllah. Just think about that, your life. The Quran's coming 23 years, yet when it's organized, when the Prophet ﷺ tells the companions to put the different verses in different places, there's such an amazing coherence throughout the whole Quran. You know, it just blows your mind. Even at a verse level, individual verses, the coherence, you know, the impact of the verses. Very first ayah, or the second ayah, whichever way you want to look at it, of Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All perfect thanks and praise belongs to Allah, who is the Lord of the worlds. The structure even of this particular ayah is so amazing. Alameen comes from alam. Who could tell me what the root means? Does someone know? Knowledge, yeah. And knowledge, or knowledge comes, the word knowledge comes from the same root, but it's a sign. And alam is a sign, it points towards something. Right? It points towards something else. So in one way of really understanding this, Allah is saying that all perfect thanks and praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of all of creation, and all of creation is a signpost that points back towards Allah. So even if you look at it the other way around, it adds up. It's almost like a self-checking sum, right? The word usage, even if you look at individual words that are used, are perfect and precise. It's amazing. Alhamdulillah. Hamd is not only thanks, but it's also praise. It covers both elements. Right? Even when it comes to certain words, and this is the amazing thing about the Arabic. You know, sometimes people say, why the Arabic language? Why is God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, revealing the final revelation in Arabic? Right? Why not English? Because they don't understand English didn't even exist back then, right? But the point is, why Arabic? Honestly, if you really study the Arabic language, you will see the Arabic language is probably the pound for pound the most dense and beautiful language in the world. Right? Every single word you can write sentences, especially the words in the Quran. Right? And the amazing thing is that not only do the words have meaning internally in themselves, but they convey meaning through even the sounds of the words. Through even the sounds. The sound of the word adds to the meaning. For example, when Allah says, Ma'ishatan donka, where Allah says that those people that turn away from the remembrance of God, they will have a constricted, difficult life. The word donk, when you say donka, what happens to the back of your throat? You're suffocating, literally. So you get the impact of the word, even through the way it comes, even through the way it exits your mouth. When Allah says, Alam nashrah laka sadra. Shrah, did we not expand your chest for you, your breast for you? When you say shrah, what happens to you? Look at the way it comes out of your mouth. Your mouth opens, there's an opening. So the Arabic language is almost like it was designed for the revelation of the Quran to take place within history. It's so profound. You know, it's so amazing. And we can talk about this till the cows come on. And this is why I really recommend, you know, to whatever level you can study the Arabic language. Even if it's just studying the Arabic language in a way to access the Quran. It's not difficult. Allah says He's made the Quran easy to remember. Obviously, we've seen this being demonstrated and manifested in the memorization of the Quran. The majority of the world today is non-Arabic. Yet, kids as young as 5, 6 years old are memorizing the Quran cover to cover. It's an amazing phenomenon that's taking place. I don't know of any other book that's memorized like this and they're so easy to memorize. Right? But it's also in being able to study the language of the Quran. It's not difficult. It's honestly not difficult. Within a year or 2 years of part-time study, you will start to pick up on reading the Quran and understanding it directly in Arabic. And then you start to really, you know, experience that element of the miracle of the Quran itself. Historical accuracies of the Quran, we call the miracles the accuracies of the Quran. Again, many examples in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions certain historical phenomena which are maybe mentioned in other texts and other scriptures, but it mentions them in an accurate way, where it tells history exactly as it was. Right? Other mentions, they get some things wrong. Right? For example, when it comes to the Egyptians, there is a mention of the ruler of the Egyptians in two different times. One in the time of Joseph, Yusuf alayhi salam, and one in the time of Moses, Musa alayhi salam. Now at the time of Moses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word Pharaoh, Fir'aun. At the time of Joseph, Allah uses the word king, Malik. And that's very interesting. It's a very small nuance. And normally when you read through the Quran, you won't even pick up on this. Normally in translation, it may not even get picked up. Right? But it's there. There's a small difference. Now if you look, for example, both are mentioned also in the Bible as well. Right? But what's not clarified is that they're both referred to with the same title. But in the Quran, Allah makes a distinction. And obviously with the advent of the discovery of the hieroglyphs and the study of history, they have seen that at the time of Joseph, that the rulers, they weren't native Egyptians, and they would refer to the leaders as kings, and not Pharaoh. And at the time of Moses, the ruler was referred to as Pharaoh. So subtle accuracies of the Quran, just the precision of the words that are used. Historically, it's accurate, right? The defeat of the Romans, and the list goes on, right? You can see many, many examples of this. And again, it's a very powerful sign, if you like, that points to, it makes you realize that, hold on, something else is going on here. This information, because the hieroglyphs were a dead language at the time of the Prophet. He didn't have access to it. He may have had access to other things, but when it comes to the hieroglyphs, he didn't have access to it. It was only recently discovered. Another very interesting point is that the message of the Quran is in line with human nature. And this is where the element of the fitrah comes in, which I mentioned earlier, is that when you read the Quran, and if you just, for the sake of our discussion, just focus on the basic message, the core message of the Quran, what you will see is that it hits something deep inside the person. For example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. 4 words, I believe, 4 words, right? But they ring a chord deep down inside of us. Allah is saying, say that He is God, Allah, who is just uniquely one. The word ahad here, because we know there's other words for one, narrow. Why, for example? Allah uses it in other parts of the Quran, but here Allah uses ahad specifically. And what it signifies is that it's a one without a second or a third or a fourth. There is no other. He's alone. There's no other. And this concept of God is something very natural and intuitive to human beings. Normally, when you speak to people, when they're open-minded, you say, does it make sense that God, the creator of everything that exists, is one? Yeah, it makes sense. It's a very natural principle. In philosophy, they call the principle Occam's razor. Irrelevant what the name is, doesn't matter. The point is, the principle is, why don't multiply entities beyond necessity? Right? It's human, it's just something we do rationally. If something explains something, you don't need to multiply more add-ons and add more elements to it. Go with the simplest and best explanation. The creator of the heavens and the earth is one. It's a very natural, intuitive conclusion. When we say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, going back to that, it's all thanks and perfect praise belongs to God. What's very interesting? Humans that suffer from mental illnesses, and depression and anxiety, what they're testing now in psychology is called, I don't know what it's called, but I call it gratitude therapy. So what they get patients to do is they get them to be grateful twice a day, or once a day. It's different protocols. So what they get them to do is sit down and just be grateful for some things that they have in their life. And over time, what that does is it helps lift that depression. So gratitude is a very natural human thing. When someone does something good for us, we're grateful. And with that internal sense of gratitude, we want to express it through our language. We want to say thank you. Somewhere deep inside, if the human beings being honest, if we look at our lives, we don't own our lives. We don't earn the moments that we're given, the things that we have. We didn't work for these things, right? The families that we have, the love that we have in our families, the friends that we have, all of the blessings that we have in our lives. Deep down, we know that I'm grateful for this. But who should you be grateful to? You have to be grateful to someone, right? You can't just say, I am grateful. Okay, to what? To who? So deep down, there's this sense that there is this gratitude that's due. That's why when many people, non-Muslims, when they read Alhamdulillah, all perfect thanks and praise belongs to God, who is the creator of everything that exists. For many people, that acts as a pressure release. That's it. This is who thanks is due to. And many people become Muslim, not because someone gives them da'wah, not because someone invites them. Many people just pick up the Quran, they open it, and they read what is an ayah? It's a sign. It triggers that truth within the person, that fitrah, that nature. They read the Quran, they become Muslim. And it's upon us, especially as Muslims now, to communicate this message, especially in the times we live in. And it's so sad that all people generally are aware of about Islam and know about Islam is what they hear in the media, or what they hear through certain sources and outlets, and all they generally hear is this is bad, this is evil, this Muslim's doing this guy's doing this, Islam says this, Islam says that. It's just been misrepresented. And it's very interesting if you think about it. If you want to do away with something, the easiest thing to do is just to misrepresent it. Give it a bad name, create this false image and perception, job done. Now people, straight away you hear Islam, you hear like I said before, you hear Quran, you hear Muslim, negative thoughts and things go through your mind, you completely change it. Right? So we have a challenging job ahead of us, which is to now clarify not only these things, but to share the true message of Islam with people. And share, the Quran with people, the message of the Quran. And that responsibility is upon us, brothers and sisters. It's not, no one else is going to come and do it for us. There's no more messengers coming, there's no more prophets coming. And as entertaining or as nice as Quran Week or Discover Islam Week may be once during the year, it shouldn't be a thing you do once a year or twice a year. It should be something now that you should do, throughout your year, throughout your daily life, make dawah part of your life, And inshallah, tomorrow we have a dawah training course here after Jummah, inshallah. Anyone that's free, do attend. It'll be a short course, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. And we'll go through the training, be very beneficial for you to Discover Islam Week as well, inshallah. That's coming. And just to conclude, just a few other things to keep in mind. Number one, the fact that the Quran is memorized by millions and millions of people across the world. The fact that Allah Himself says that He's made it easy for us to remember. And that this prophecy, if you like, is being fulfilled, that millions of people are memorizing the Quran and have memorized the Quran, is a sign in itself, right? And normally we underplay this, we think, it's a normal thing, because we're so used to it. People memorize Quran. But if you look at it from an objective, non-Muslim perspective, it's something very, very interesting. It's very hard to memorize just passages, let alone whole books. Right? The fact that it's preserved. The fact that the Quran is preserved in all of the authentic qira'at that we have, and all of these things, sometimes when it comes to qira'at, sometimes we get afraid, we think, oh my God, non-Muslims try to use those against us sometimes. Oh look, you have one Quran, this and the other. No, whatever's between the covers is the Quran. All of it's the Quran. And I would say that's one of the miracles of the fact that the Quran came down in different modes. Let alone having to explain one miraculous form, that you have, so many more to explain. To one man. It's amazing when you think about it, right? So the fact that it's preserved, and we can check this, and the fact that it's an oral tradition, that's something very important as well. Manuscript tradition is secondary. Primary form of preservation of the Quran is oral. And something important to keep in mind, because sometimes what happens is you get some people that will come to you and say, oh, look, here's a manuscript that's been discovered, maybe it's not been discovered, maybe it's just something that's put out there, and there is this inaccuracy in the manuscript. Even if there's a manuscript that was completely wrong, it means nothing, because we have that oral tradition which we cross-check by, right? And it's interesting, you can have a child in UK, you can have a child in Africa, you can have a child somewhere in India, and you can if they've memorized the Quran, bring them together and they could cross-corroborate. They will recite the Quran, they can cross-check with each other. And it's a global phenomenon, it's something very, very amazing, which doesn't exist in any other tradition. The consistency. Now this is